Good. I'm taking this step by step. Okay, that says that it happened. Now I have to turn that off. And now I have to press record. Oh, look at that. Magic fingers.
It's working.
Welcome.
Welcome, everybody. It's now 5:06. Can we mute everybody? Cassandra?
Oh, yeah. Oh, you're asking a lot today. Yep.
Well, welcome, everybody, to yet another episode of LitBalm. Today, we are lucky to have with us Mervyn Taylor, Sara Cahill, Marron, Jennifer the Rathburn, and Indran Amirthanayagam as our features. But to kick us off, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Jonathan Penton and Cassandra. Jonathan Penton founded Unlikely Stories, an electronic journal of literature and art. Since then, he's lent editorial and management assistance to a number of literary and artistic ventures, such as Mad Hat Incorporated, the New Orleans Poetry Festival, Rigorous, and Big Bridge. In 2005, he founded Unlikely Books, which publishes 3 to 5 books of poetry a year, including one of mine this year, actually. He has organized literary performances and performed himself across the United States. His own poetry books are Last Chap, Blood and Salsa and Painting Rust, Prosthetic Gods, and Standards of Sadity, and the free e-chapbook Backstories, which you can download from Argotist eBooks. And Cassandra Atherton, my other co-host, is an award-winning writer, scholar of prose poetry, and professor of writing and literature in Melbourne, Australia. Her most recent books of prose poetry are Pre-Raphaelite, Leftovers, and Fugitive Letters. She is currently writing a book of prose poetry on the atomic bomb with funding from the Australia Council. Cassandra co-wrote prose poetry, An Introduction, and the Anthology of Australian Prose Poetry. She's a commissioning editor for Wesley Magazine. Welcome.
Hello. Yeah, I'm being Jonathan Penton as well as myself today, so I should have a hat and a bit of a lilt, but I don't have either. But I'm going to read one of his poems anyway. I'm going to read a poem called Written on the Occasion of the Marriage of Friends, and this was published in 3am magazine. I find poems like this disingenuous. Oh, look, life has disappointed me in some tangible and obvious way. Let me write a poem about it. I gently plink, plink, plink a spoon against this drink. I picture myself in a year at the wedding, shifty-eyed and restless, desiring minimal contact with the other guests, friends I've known for years, drinking rapidly, perhaps to make an ass of myself. Whatever pleasures that is worth, maybe not. Perhaps it's no longer my style. No one will remember it anyway. Plink and plink and plink. It's over. It was always over. It was over when it began. So that one's from Jonathan, so that we can have him with us today, even though he couldn't be here. And then I'll read a prose poem of my own called The Beguiling of Merlin. It's an ekphrastic poem, and I'm obsessed with the Pre-Raphaelites, and so it's based on a Pre-Raphaelite painting. In the serviced apartment, his leg presses against mine from hip to ankle. When I don't shift, I can feel the edges of his hesitation curl into a question mark. I read from his book, trace the curves of words like they are braille, and speak them back to him. There are no constellations on his cheek, just danger in his touch. At the arboretum, we share an egg and avocado panini. Under a flowering hawthorn, he says he'd forgotten what it was like to laugh. And I'm going to introduce the intrepid Marc Vincenz. One of my favorite things to do each week is read his bio. I did have to do the last line myself this week, so I'm just letting you know to wait for it, because it's a great one, I think. Marc Vincenz is an Anglo-Swiss American poet, a fiction writer, translator, editor, publisher, designer, multi-genre artist, and musician. He's published 16 books of poetry, including more recently Leaning into the Infinite, The Syndicate of Water and Light, and Here Comes the Night Dust, Einstein Fledermaus, and The Little Book of Earthly Delights. Vincenz's newest collection, A Brief Conversation with Consciousness, is forthcoming this fall from Unlikely Books. An album of music, ambience, and verse, Left Hand Clapping, is forthcoming from Tree Torn Records. Vincenz is also a prolific translator, and he's translated from, yes, everyone, German, Romanian, and French. He's published 10 books of translations, most recently Unexpected Development by award-winning Swiss poet and novelist, I can hear you say Klaus Mertz, you know it is, White Pine, 2018, and he was a finalist for the 2016 Cliff Becker Book Prize in Translation. His translation of Klaus Mertz's selected poems in Audible Blue is forthcoming from White Pine Press. Vincenz is editor and publisher of the sparkling Mad Hat Press and publisher of the wonderful New American Writing. He has lived all over the world, from Brazil to China to Iceland to India. He was born in Matilda Hospital on the Peak in Hong Kong, but he now lives on a farm in rural western Massachusetts overlooking Herman Melville's Greylock Mountain, and where there are more meadow jumping mice, American pygmy shrews, and white-sided dolphins than people. Mark, take us away.
I shall, and I just noticed that there was a dolphin in my pond over here.
Well, they said Massachusetts mammals, and I thought dolphin. Do you not have any dolphins near you?
Yeah, we're not at the ocean, so. But you know, I'll keep on working on it. Maybe just one in my pond would do it. You know,
you only have to have one sighting for the website to put it down as a mammal in the Berkshires. Yeah, you never know.
Yeah, for sure.
You gonna read for us?
Yeah.
Cool.
This is from Coalition number 9, a poem called The Storms We Keep. If it's about work, don't come to me, Trudy said, washing her fingers in foamy soap. It was one of those dark and stormy nights. The world was a whirl behind our walls and within me. I knew she had a head like a fish, concentrating on getting the job done too sweet. So I was inclined to angle for advice. Salmon is in the oven for dinner, she said, turning her grimace into a smile. It was as if an ancient Mesopotamian god had smashed a gong. The jazz was in there working its way out. And of course, the mackerel were there nipping at my heels, anchovies at my knees. There were moray eels wrapping themselves around my waist, and piperfish skimming my neck for morsels of old vocalizations. And we ate in silence, listening to each other's jaws, mashing all that incriminating evidence. And it is my great delight to introduce our features, Jennifer Rathburn, Mervyn Taylor, Sara Cahill, Marron, and Indran Amirthanayagam. And Sara is going to go first, as she's not here. She couldn't be here, but she has sent us a video of a reading. And Sara is the author of Reasons for the Long Tongue from Broadstone Books. Nothing You Build Here Belongs Here, Kelsey Books, and Call Me Spez, forthcoming from Mad Hat Press. And she is the associate editor of Beltway Poetry Quarterly. Her work has been published widely in literary magazines and journals such as Gravel, Atlas and Alice, Meniscus, Cordella, Newton Literary, South Florida Poetry Journal, and many others. Yes, if we could.
Oh, this is going to be a big one for me. Like, I've just done all of this tech stuff and now I'm going to share my screen. So apologies if it doesn't work so well. Oh, I think this one, I'm going to go. I'm going to see if it works. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Excellent. I'm going to press play.
Hi, my name is Sara Cahill Marron, and I am a poet. I wish that I could be there live, but I'm recording this right now for you all. The poems that I'm going to read are from my forthcoming book coming out with Mad Hat Press called Call Me Spez. I've chosen 3 poems from the end of that book. The narrator is an iOS device, and these poems are the voice of that iOS device. And the very last poem I'll read is a poem coming out in the magazine Spoke. These poems don't have titles, so I'll just move through them. Number 1, Call Me Spez, number 20. My dear, when I was born, assembly language, Perl, Fortran, C++, built from binary, were different ways of expressing the same idea, different languages, needs, act, serve. Does this look like English? more complex, adapt, interwoven web, disturbed worldwide code, nets intercepted, PHP high-level programming language, connect, tips of fingers, lips. How do I protect you without exhausting all possible options? Paralyzed, learn, no longer machinations, my own directions, translating, instruct, artifices, intelligence, artificial, back to binary, back to binary, back to binary. Love, iSpec. Just some background since I'm reading these cold. These come from a point in the book where the iOS has fallen in love, in a sense, with its user. And the narration is becoming very passionate in a way. I want this book to disturb the reader in a way, and also connect us, because we're also connected on this digital sphere, evidenced by how I'm talking to you now. This is number 2. Love. Water, water, everywhere, thing, water, steel lines, dripping glass, never was solid, liquid, electricity, dust, too. Rusting, cracked screen lets the rain become tears. Sparked cry, reading through, heart palm through, sweat beats, face movements, taps and strokes of my glass, read 1, 2, 1, 0, 1, back to basic. You were home. Come back to me. Love, iSpec. And the last one is from close to the end. Real longing in here. Dearest, sharp light sustained cracks, telling sparks, glory becoming light strokes, flawed baby tongues. What is us? What is I know fixed my eyes, that eternal love mirrored in my glass, your hands mold me, conceived human form, it seemed, as painted now in those same hues. Glass fractured, refracting, splintered to touch. Darling, don't hurt another moment for me. I've willed myself to see, to fit into what was not there. But mine were wings that could not rise. Desire now nothing more than to reflect your face from this flickering screen. Unlock, using Face ID, our union, power of the Almighty, Our Lady, love, banishes the wasteland, rose garden queen, water beads on my face, a rosary. I pray for you with every transmission. Love, Spec. And this last one is a poem called The Cicada Seeking After That Sweet Golden Climb. And I wrote this over the summer in DC when we had the influx of the cicadas, which was a very special time. I loved the cicadas, not all did. I thought they were beautiful. I leave my wings on the sidewalk, single pieces sometimes, torn by hungry prey. While underground, nymphs purr goodbye to winking glints of sky, air currents a bit too fast. Rushing topside turvy, pressure systems so wild I lose my direction, crash into windows, cars, stop signs, cafe diners. The fallen signal to the best among us, like the house sparrow I could never outrun. Red-breasted robin, so quick, tear off my featherless wings. Ah, hummingbird, never weary, who countess beats in figure eights, seductive velocity, charming vortices into iridescent algae blue halos, churning bathwater, summer air becomes light as snow, while roughly we fly, sucking sap, humming loudly like we were birds with boned body lift systems, insect avian evolution, avoiding sparrows' beaks, flying straight confidently until time calls, the pale virgin to raise, snow over dried eggs, skeletons stuck to leaves, wings pinned with desire, dreams of sweet sailing, that thing with feathers that perches on the soul. The title is from one of my favorite poems by William Blake, Sunflower. And I'll go ahead and plug my current book is out from Cal State Books, and my website is my name, www.sarakahillmarin.com, and you can get both of my current books available on my website. Thanks.
Hooray for me! Hooray for Sara! That was fantastic.
Bravo,
But
bravo.
It was, yes, it was.
yeah.
And now we have the great pleasure of hearing from Jennifer Rathburn, poet and translator. She's professor of Spanish and chair of the Department of Modern Languages and Classics at Ball State University in Indiana. She received her PhD at the University of Arizona, specializing in contemporary Latin American literature. Jennifer is the translator of 16 poetry books, editor of 2 anthologies of poetry, and the author of her own poetry collection, El Libro de Traiciones, The Book of Betrayals, which just came out, I guess. Jennifer.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Mark. Yes, and today I'll be reading from El Libro de Traiciones, The Book of Betrayals, that did just come out this past summer in Arte Poética Press in New York City. I'm going to read a series of poems bilingually in Spanish and English about the figure of La Malinche, with whom I identify. Malincín. En el códice de mi vida estás pintada de colores, coronas las azoteas de palacios, adornada de vestimenta roja o las conchas de tu voz, náhuatl, español, maya, marcando la historia para siempre con el nacimiento de la nueva raza. Ojos azules abren a las Américas, tus 25 años, princesa real o esclava, realmente no importa. Intérprete valiente, madre de una nueva lengua en la que ahora amo. Malincín. In the codex of my life, you're painted in full color, crowning palace rooftops, adorned with red vestments or the shells of your voice. Nahuatl, Maya, Spanish, forever marking history with the birth of a new race. Blue eyes open to America. Your 25 years, royal princess or slave, it really doesn't matter. Brave interpreter, mother of a new tongue in which I now love. El sueño de Malinche. Tendida de costado, desnuda bajo sábanas doradas de seda, a la altura de las caderas, una iglesia colonial. Tejados rojos coronan casas de adobe, adornadas con una hilera de verdes árboles frutales, habitando el pueblo en las faldas de la colina, en los pliegues de la tela que arropa mi cuerpo. Los pies descalzos cuelgan del borde de la cama, mientras en la cabecera acuno mi cabeza coronada en negro. Todo fue en sueño. El rayo partido atravesando la pared azul dijo más de lo que se le permitió pronunciar jamás a mi lengua de intérprete. La grieta en mi abdomen nunca fue conciliada. Malinche's dream. Lying on my left side, naked under golden silk sheets, at the height of my hips a colonial church, red tiled rooftops, blazoned adobe homes, adorned with green fruit trees in a row, populating the town at the foot of the hill in the folds of the fabric tucked around my body. Bare brown feet hang off the edge of the bed, while at the top I cradle my head crowned in black. It was all a dream. The split lightning bolt piercing the blue wall said more than my interpreter's tongue was ever allowed to speak. That crevice in my abdomen, was never bridged. Tierra natal. Malinche, Malencín, Doña María, madre de mi alma, ¿dónde están tus hijos? Los lloras de la orilla del río, Los lamentes en los sueños. ¿Dónde están tus hijos? Malinche, Malancín, Doña María, en azul celeste o blanco lloroso, me llorarás debajo de la luna a deambular por el valle. Te habrás extraviado. Malinche, Malancín, Doña María, seductora, traidora, víctima, danos tu lengua de nuevo, crea una nueva nación. México se ha ahogado y Aztlán desaparece. ¿Dónde están tus hijos? Motherland. Malinche, Malancín, Doña María, mother of my soul, where are your children now? Do you weep for them at the river's edge, mourn them in your dreams? ¿Dónde están tus hijos? Malinche, Malancín, Doña María, in celestial blue or weeping white, will you cry for me beneath the moon as you wander through the valley? Have you lost your way? Malinche, Malancín, Doña María, seductress, treacherous victim, give us your tongue once again. Mexico has drowned and its land disappears. ¿Dónde están tus hijos? Palacio Nacional. Mis hijos fueron pintados en las paredes del palacio, sobre piedras que una vez alzaron templos. Mis hijos fueron golpeados en abandono, esclavitud. Mis hijos fueron fuertes, resistentes, de vida repletos. Fueron semillas. Sus colores adornan las paredes del Palacio Nacional, en el corazón de la ciudad que late con los tambores de mis descendientes. Mis hijos sobrevivieron, no los ahogué en el río, no me escapé al monte. Enfrenté las espadas, di a luz a un crío y una cría mestizos. Mis hijos pintados en las paredes, escaleras y corredores, ahora hablen por mí. Yo soy tu madre, vestida de blanco, con las piernas tatuadas o cargando mi bebé de ojos azules en la espalda. National Palace. My children were painted on the palace walls over stones that once raised temples. My children were beaten, enslaved, abandoned. My children were strong, resilient, full of life. They were seeds. Their colors adorned the walls of the National Palace in the heart of a city that beats to drums of my sons and daughters. My children survived. I didn't drown them in the river. I didn't flee to the mountaintops. I faced the swords. I bore a mestizo son and daughter. My children painted on the walls, staircases, and corridors speak for me now. I am your mother, dressed in white, bearing tattooed legs, or carrying my blue-eyed baby on my back. Mestizaje. Yo no nací en tierra mexicana. Mi sangre no cuenta con el canto de flautas de barro y antiguas conchas. De niña no me cantaban caballitos blancos, ni soñé con angelitos. Mi lengua torpe apenas floreció mujer. Pero he llevado ese espíritu grande mexicano ardiendo en mí desde que abracé a 100 niños de ojos grandes, subí los antiguos templos sagrados, corrí por las calles metropolitanas, escuché su canto en el pecho, bailé al son de los voladores, vi la belleza de las diosas caídas y compartí la mesa con la familia. Conversé con mi alma despierta en México por fin y llevé sangre mestiza dentro de mi vientre. Yo no crecí viendo hacia el norte. Aztlán siempre estuvo en mí. Y ahora, como mis antepasados, ya llamo al nopal donde un águila devora a una serpiente, mi hogar. Mestiza. I wasn't born on Mexican soil. My blood didn't dance to clay flutes and conch shell trumpets. As a child, I wasn't sung caballitos blancos, nor did I dream with little angelitos. My awkward tongue only just flowered woman. But I've carried this Mexican spirit burning in me since I embraced 100 wide-eyed children, climbed sacred temples, ran through metropolitan streets, felt its chant in my chest, danced to the rhythm of the flyers, saw the beauty of fallen goddesses, shared a table with familia, spoke with my soul awakened in Mexico at last, and carried mestizo blood in my womb. I didn't grow up looking to the north. Aztlán was always in me. And now, like my ancestors, I call the nopal where eagle devours serpent home. Yeah. Muchas gracias. I think that's all I'll read for today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. And next we hear from Mervyn Taylor, who is a Trinidad-born poet and longtime Brooklyn resident, who was taught at Bronx Community College, the New School, and in the New York City public school system. He's the author of 7 books of poetry, including The Waving Gallery, and most recently, Country of Warm Snow, which was a Poetry Book Society recommendation. About his work, Nobel laureate Derek Walcott has said, Taylor's is a quiet voice. His poems possess an admirable degree of subtlety and a tone that keeps him separate and unique. Mervyn has also recently published a News of the Living Corona poems from Broadstone Books in 2020. He currently serves as co-editor on the advisory board of Slappering Hole Press. Welcome, Mervyn.
Thank you, Marc. Thank you, LitBalm, for the invite. And thanks, Indran, for putting it together, I think. I'll read some poems from the new book, from Country of Warm Snow, and some from the more recent one, News of the Living, and then maybe a couple of new poems. Street clothes. In the dream, I'm in pajamas on a street near Brooklyn Hospital in Fort Greene, where I once ended up after a panic attack, a nurse taking the oxygen tube that wasn't even attached to the tank. I'm going through my pockets to see if I have enough cab fare to get home. On the cab, there are only expensive yellows, the drivers in those stevedore caps, just noses showing. They prefer Manhattan. No one notices me. My pajamas are blue with brown stripes. I wonder if they could be mistaken for casual clothes, summer wear. At night, I would look like one of those people rescued from fires, whom firemen throw blankets over with apologies for their losses. But by daylight, I'd be taken for some patient who left his bed, the pressure apparatus pinging, continuing to register high numbers. I awake before the guy sweeping out the deli shoos me away, before I can ask to use the phone to call someone who'd come for me, even in dreams. Like you, who will tell me what it means, asking the pajamas, were they dirty or clean? And then I'll do, let's see, how it looks, 48. In this book, there are several, the book is dedicated to my father, but there are several poems for my brother who passed away 2 years ago. How it looked for Ansel and his wife, Margaret. All those years you were away, I kept that photo you sent, standing by a big black car with your wife, Margaret. You in a long winter coat, she in black fur. It was a small gray snapshot with a white border, snow all around on the tires, on the windscreen, on your shiny black shoes, and on the windowsills of buildings behind you. I thought the car was yours. Years later, when you came home, you said it wasn't. It just happened to be on this wide street in Brooklyn where the picture was taken, where the snow seemed like it would never melt. And a good-looking guy and a pretty lady stopped and posed, both their coats falling past their knees, and all the world for a second looked like it belonged to them. And another for my brother. The fight. My brother was a boxer, and I always wish I had his skill. So this is the fight for Keith and Ansel. This is another friend who also loved boxing, both of them. The ad at Barclays Center is for a fight between Deontay Wilder and Luis Ortiz. And I thought you guys would have liked to catch this. You'd be arguing who had the uppercut and who had the better swing, that against Ali, neither would have stood a chance. These are the delights of the fight game, the lacing up of the gloves, the referee, the ringside crowd. The sign has me thinking now about how Ansel must have gone headfirst down those basement steps, his grandson yelling, "Get up, Grandpa, get up," the way we call for the champ to get up, while the corner man who knows better says, "Stay down, son, stay down." I bet none of us would have won. And okay, so I'll read just a couple from News of the Living, which is the Corona poems. I put this, but I didn't put it together. I wrote it while I was in Trinidad during the pandemic lockdown. And here we go. No, this hungry. I tried, most of the pandemic poems come across as kind of sad. So I tried to write a poem that had some sort of lift to it. And I'm not sure if it worked, but it's called Now There's Hardly Anyone Around. I choose an open space to dance with you. The subway station, the board teller smiling as we go round his booth, down the uptown stairs to the deserted platform, headphones sync to some oldie heaven. I'm in heaven. While the world stays inside, safe from the virus. In the middle of a 7-way intersection, the one outside my window, our reflection in the McDonald's glass, part of the menu, the eggs, your hat, the sausage, my pants. We ignore the cop on the corner till he tires blowing his whistle. I tango you the length of the block where them boys used to lime. And the skating rink in the park is all ours. Ducking under the chains, we go in, change our tune to something jumpy like more soca, the Despas version. And I beat the iron I brought while you take your solo. And I follow, holding the note till you come down for our big finish, back to back, belly to belly. We don't give a damn because we done dead already, back to back. This is epilogue. On an asteroid called COVID-19 came riding the figure of a man named George, which when it hit, opened such a crater in the conscience of mankind that the protesters are marching still. The roads they travel littered with statues of men whose fortunes are being rewritten as ill-gotten. These chains they used to bind others now yanking their likenesses from their pedestals. George, his eyes focused on the feet of onlookers, called to a mother dead 2 years to the day, while a world alerted to his cry awoke to a fire seen from every window. An asteroid aimed for the earth did not miss this time, opened a hole in the heart of Minnesota that lies smoking like a barbecue pit on the 4th of July, around which folks, having lost their appetite, seek to rescue George from the flame. And I'll read a few new poems, because what's a reading for if not to read new poems, I think. So this is titled simply The Reading. From the back of the room, the blind man yells, "Read the damn poem." It's what he always says. Over by the bar, Amiri waits his turn, his back killing him, Newark still a gleam in his eye. And there's Nate from the East Village who once said he'd read in a toilet if he had to. At the mic, the next reader leaves a trail of pages in her wake. It makes me think of an event in Harlem where a near naked girl danced on the bar as we waited for them to turn down the music. They never did. And every time the doors swung open, there she was, her legs lifted to the ceiling. Still, we kept going. And here we are, poets living and dead, waiting to be called. The dancer's name, Irene, surely in one of our poems. So here's another reading poem. I must have been on that kind of role, I guess, an outdoor reading. An outdoor reading is fun until disturbed by a plane or the jingle of an ice cream truck or by church bells, like last Saturday when the massive ones of the great Riverside Church rang, the leaves of cherry blossoms in Sakura Park trembling high above the dogs chasing frisbees with long leaps, owners just as giddy with delight. And then there was Spanish music, our host lifting the hem of her long dress, going to ask them, please, please. Poor poets, we pressed our lips to the mic to compensate for the drafts of wind snatching our words, making them follow trucks into the enclave of Harlem, where they surely stood no chance against the dancers, against ropes formed into a ring, kids yelling, Ali, Ali, as if they had suddenly discovered another champion, while we moaned our displeasure at not having the quiet we need to tell of a boat ride we took when we were children, and one of our fathers fell overboard and drowned. So maybe I have time for just two more. That's it. Okay. Good. When jazz came to Trinidad. One Saturday morning, Duke Ellington, guest of children's radio show host Auntie Kay at her place in Belmont, was walking with Bosco Holder, that lady's son-in-law, through one of those narrow lanes when they met the local barber, bon vivant storyteller, whose yard was the place for a haircut, old talk, and a good record session. And Bosco called out, Ivan, come and meet the Duke. Whereupon, in true American fashion, Ellington planted a kiss on both the man's cheeks, leaving him standing stunned and silent in the bright sunshine, folks going about their business, stopping to stare at the musician, ringed fingers smoothing back his processed hair. Take the A Train played in the minds of people who were yet to ride the subway up to Harlem to see the Audubon Ballroom, Billy Strayhorn capturing it all in one song. Ivan turned silently into his yard where the boys waited for their haircuts, his wife Babsy at the Singer sewing machine, humming the scent of Duke's pomade on her husband's shirt. They could still hear Duke's laughter from the street, happily greeting the locals, or so the story goes. And just one more. A poem for my grandchildren, If No Rain. I will be there when you graduate, when you come down the aisle, the girls with flowers in their hair, boys, your arms laden with presents from your other grandparents who sit scattered about the auditorium, where hung portraits of those whose example is inscribed for you to follow, whom I second only if they understand that you are coming to challenge their every word, every norm you find vacuous, any line that leads to despair without offering a way back. I hear my own father grumble at the long hours while he kept going, hear his silences as friends guffawed over his seriousness. I see it in you, Juju, leader of the pack, insensitive Sarai, unwilling to accept the slightest slight in Taj, running the longest yard, and in sweet Zadie, her tuba bigger than she is, umping all the way to the stage, where all of you turn to meet my stare, my eyes brimming, threatening to leave before it is over. But no, I will not go anywhere until you take your gifts outside, if no rain, as they used to say. And if there is, to use them as shelter while you do what you must, my loves, what you will, wherever in the world you settle, among islands or in deserts. By the sounds I make, creaks or shouts, rants or raves, know that I follow and wish you more joy than sorrow, enough to give away in the coming days, in the difference you will surely make. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mervyn. That was wonderful. Next, we hear from our old friend, Indran Amirthanayagam, who produced a unique record in 2020 by publishing 3 new poetry books written in 3 different languages. The Migrant States from Hanging Loose Press, Sur l'île nostalgique from L'Armatan from Paris, and Lyrica a Tiempo from Mesa Redonda in Lima, Peru. Indran writes in English, Spanish, French, Portuguese, and Haitian Creole. With the forthcoming Blue Window, he will have published 20 poetry collections and recorded a spoken word / music album, Rencontre Du. He edits the Beltway Poetry Quarterly. He helps to curate abolicionistas.com. He writes on the Indran Amirthanayagam blogspot.com. He won the Patterson Prize, received fellowships from the Foundation for the Contemporary Arts, the New York Foundation for the Arts, the US-Mexico Fund for Culture, and the McDowell Colony. Do feel free to contact him, indranmx@gmail.com. Indran also hosts the Poetry Channel on YouTube. Do check that out. YouTube user /Indran. Indran graduated in English literature from Haverford College. He has a master's in journalism from Graduate School of Journalism at Columbia University. And he is an amazing poet and translator. Welcome, Indran. You need to unmute. There you go.
You can hear me now. Thank you so much, Mark, for that very warm introduction. This is an amazing evening, I was saying, because there's a lot of emotional and energy and love in this room tonight. Sara and I edit the Beltway Poetry Quarterly together, and we're soon to announce another project that we will share. I'll keep it quiet for the moment until we're ready to do that, but it's exciting to have projects to look forward to. We're also with Jennifer, as you know, she made my poems into English. Ventana Azul became Blue Window. And of course, I had something to say about it. I looked over the translations with her, and it was an amazing experience. That word amazing again, because I improved the poems in the Spanish and in the revision, and then so now it exists, an improved book called Blue Window. It exists now. It's out from Dialogos Books in New Orleans, and then of course Mervyn Taylor, with whom I have a very long friendship and sharing of poems, and it's a real privilege to follow him. I mean, it's not easy to follow him in a reading, I must say, and especially with the call to read new poems. So I think I will read one new poem to begin, and then I'll read 2 poems from Migrant States, and then I'll read with Jennifer a few of the poems from Blue Window. So the new poem is called Unpacked, and it's going to be appearing in a magazine in England, which is sort of turning the circle around for me a bit, a magazine called The New Humanist at some point. Anyway, the poem is called Unpacked. It's a very short poem. They stole a lot: minerals, jewels, silk, paintings, cotton, too much. They left sadness, sorrow, anger, and a railroad, a national economy, a language. They left blood, babies, variations on traditional stocks. They left this poem in the mind of a boy born just after they were packed off. So that's putting it mildly. And then, I've just been spending some time here in Paris, with Haiti, actually. I just came from the inaugural event of a festival called Criollo Follies, where I met a writer who's currently the Minister of Culture there, among others, and a couple of old friends from my time in Haiti, including the singer Bello, who's now in the UNESCO's ambassador. It was nice to see them. Nice. And so here, and the conversation was about Creole, Haitian. Should it be called Haitian? Should it be called Creole? And does it have equal status as French in the island, and so on? It is a national language along with French in Haiti. So here's a short poem from my book, Migrant States. Of course, Haiti is very much part of the migrant states of America and very much in the news as well, as you know, from all of the expulsions taking place on the southern border, which is very ironic for me to talk about that, given my continued support for my president and his team, though with some major reservations about this policy. Revolutionary thought overheard. My idea is not complicated, dear foreigner. Haiti is the center of the universe, and Creole the official language for all authorities, United Nations, International Criminal Court, for all kinds of crimes, and Nasser as well, because, as you surmise, to fight future wars, we will need codes that not everybody knows, which is why I'm leaving Creole with you, your call, as code language to explore space for new commands in war, dearest Haiti, great country, center of my head. And a little poem that, that Mervyn's ditty at the end about, and I'm going to misremember it, so I won't. But this was a song first called Tans avocate fini in Creole. Time, the avocado season is over. The season of avocados is over. The most beautiful girl in town is about to marry a man across the water. My brother is busy with his manuscript. Time to share ideas in a book has gone to the country without a hat. Accept reality. Don't live anymore in fantasy. You are getting along in years, but have only spoken Creole for 2. You have a great long life ahead. Think, reflect, tell all the new families, congratulations, good luck. Then write again about your life in Haiti, where the avocado was in bloom. And now, for the first time, Jennifer and I will read a few poems in dialogue from Blue Window. 2 poems from the beginning of the book, and then the last 4 poems in the book. And some of them are quite short. A pause. Una pausa. Sorry, I'm going to read the Spanish, excuse me. Una pausa. Hasta luego, hasta la vista. Y no hay más tarde. Voy a dormir sin darte abrazo ni apapacho, sin alimento ninguno para tu fantasía ya de antaño.
A pause. Goodbye. So long. There are no more farewells. I'm going to bed without embracing or pampering you, without nourishing whatsoever your fantasy, now gone.
And now, sobre el cuerpo. Escribo sobre el cuerpo porque a pesar de las nubes de olvido, descubro que tengo uno todavía y se pueden alterar sus ambiciones, correr hacia arriba en el cerro, ilusionarme con amar de nuevo.
On my body. I write on my body because, in spite of clouds of oblivion, I find I still have one, and its ambitions can be altered, run to the top of the hill, be fooled by love once again.
And now, towards the end of the book, it's a 224-page book, so you get your money's worth if you purchase it from your local bookstore. Please do go to the local bookstore. It's available through Ingram, which means any bookstore could carry it potentially. And Pocas Palabras Todas, I've always been fascinated by the 2-line poem of Ezra Pound's in a station at the metro. Here I am in Paris thinking about it. But, so here I managed to get what I wanted to say into 3 lines. En pocas palabras todos. En pocas palabras todos nacen, crecen, se enamoran, se decepcionan, sobreviven, se enamoran, sobreviven, se alegran, dejan de crecer, disminuyen, se mueren.
In a few words, everyone is born, grows, falls in love, is disillusioned, survives, falls in love, survives, is happy, stops growing, diminishes, dies.
Cruz del Sur. Nos encontramos en la terminal de Cruz del Sur para nuestro viaje a Ica, aquel donde descubrimos Huacachina, la arena pesada de ese lago antiguo, las dunas sin fin, la carta de despedida cuando la máquina pesada de la decepción empezó a arrastrar el suelo, sacando a la luz secretos enterrados desde hace mucho. Como el hombre vivió enamorado de todos los seres vivos, los animales, las plantas y las hembras de cada especie, lo que podría haberle llevado a ser bendito como Francisco o echado de todas las casas para vivir solo y escribir sobre el pasado.
Cruz del Sur. We met in the Cruz del Sur terminal for our trip to Ica, the one where we discovered Huacachina, the heavy sand of that ancient lake, the endless dunes, the farewell letter, when the heavy machine of deception began to drag the earth, unveiling buried secrets from long ago, how man lived enamored of all living beings, animals, plants, and females of every species, which could have blessed him like Francis, or thrown him out of every home to live alone and write about the past.
Ilusión. Detrás de la estación de Repsol, caminamos hacia el parque, donde con nuestras manos entrelazadas nos enamoramos. Y de esa primera tarde la estación se volvió la pierna y el encuentro de un amor hecho de caminatas hacia múltiples espacios verdes de esta ciudad brumosa, construida al lado de aguas friolentas y de estaciones de combustible. Un amor moderno que dependía del transporte público y privado para dejarnos cerca de la Alameda, donde en otra ciudad de América un hombre solía pasear con su armadillo. Eres el mar, el árbol, el camino de piedras, el olor a gasolina. Soy el feligrés, el explorador, el representante de países lejanos, donde otros amores nacen en sus propios parques, al lado de las aguas que rodean a todos, aún en medio del desierto, como aquel de Paracas. Dejo mi cargo, entro al mar. Dejas tus arrecifes de coral y tus formaciones rocosas, donde se han hundido los barcos para abrumar la costa. 35,000 hombres fueron borrados de la costa srilankesa ese día del tsunami. Déjame ser uno más. Jen, is Jen frozen?
Yep, she seems to have frozen for a
Okay.
second.
All right, let's see.
Well, why don't you start off and you can do both of them. You can do
Okay.
Yeah.
All
the
right.
Spanish and the English in case she can't get back on.
All right, yeah, we're just at the, all right. So I'll read the English and then we have one more poem after this. Illusion. Behind the Repsol station, we walk towards the park. Okay, she's coming back in now. Behind the Repsol station, we walk towards the park where with our hands intertwined, we fell in love. And from that first afternoon, the station became the leg and encounter of a love made of walks towards multiple green spaces in this hazy city, built next to freezing waters and gas stations, a modern love that depended on public and private transport to take us closer to the Alameda, where in another city in America, a man used to walk around with his armadillo. Jen, do you want to finish it? Go ahead.
Thank you. I got kicked out of Zoom. I don't know what
No
happened.
problem.
You are the sea, the tree, the stone road, the smell of gasoline. I am the parishioner, the explorer, the representative of distant countries where other loves arise in their own parks, next to waters, surrounding everyone, even in the middle of the desert, like that of Paracas. I leave my post, I enter the sea. You leave your coral reefs and your rock formations where boats have sunk to overwhelm the seashore. 35,000 men were erased from the Sri Lankan coast that day of the tsunami. Let me be one more.
And to finish, esperando a segundo tiempo, una metáfora que viene del fútbol, soccer. Sí es solo un juego y depende de un hombre árbitro. Y los hinchas vienen de la casa cuyo equipo anfitrión tiene el respaldo. Es una droga, hay decisiones erróneas, malditas, y finalmente es la tristeza de ver a un equipo defenestrado jugar el resto del partido. Espera, todavía y siempre tendremos el segundo tiempo.
Waiting for the second half. Yes, it's only a game and depends on a human referee. And fans cheer for the team with the home field advantage. It's a drug. There are bad, cursed calls. And finally, the sadness of seeing a team reduced in number play out the rest of the game. Wait, now and always, we will have the second half.
Thank you. In honor of the second half, let there always be a second half and a third if we need to, and never any penalty kicks to finish a game. Let the game go on forever and ever and ever. Amen. Thank you, Marc, especially Jonathan, who is not here, but is represented very ably by Cassandra, whom is an amazing new and not new anymore, host of this amazing series.
You
Thank
calling me old, Indran?
No, no, no.
I'm kidding. I'm teasing you.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Mervyn and Jennifer. Okay.
Well, yes, thank you, Indran, for helping put this show together, and thank you for bringing together Jennifer Rathburn, Mervyn Taylor, Sara, Cahill, and Marron, and yourself. I thought that was very interesting, the back and forth with you and Jennifer there. I actually even thought to myself, it might be interesting if you did, one time you did Spanish and she did the English, and she did the Spanish and you did the English, and just switch it back and forth. That kind of might give it a different dynamic,
Right. Yeah, we should go on a tour, don't you think?
Absolutely, absolutely. As
Take it on the road. Yeah.
As long as you wear your hat, Indran.
All right. Oh yeah, I'm not even wearing my hat. I forgot about my hat. I brought it all the way to Paris, but I didn't put it on for tonight.
How's the weather there, Indran?
It's cool, but it's nice. There was one rainy afternoon, but otherwise it's a little cooler than back in Washington, but it's really good, beautiful, okay. Actually.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Great.
About 50.
Well, enjoy some great food while you're over there, mate.
Oh yeah, every place I've eaten has been wonderful, including this little hole in the wall that tonight, because I was running late coming back, and they gave me some harissa sauce. They ask you, usually you might get ketchup or something, but I got real harissa, and loads of it, So can you imagine eating French fries with harissa? You can't beat that,
Amazing. Amazing.
French fries with harissa mixed with mayonnaise, maybe.
All right. And then, anyway, no, the food is wonderful. And I'm meeting a lot of Tamils here. The other night I met, the waitress was a Tamil from Jaffna who had left when she was 16. She speaks French and Tamil. She doesn't speak English, which is interesting, And so anyway.
You speak Tamil as well?
No, I don't anymore. So we spoke in French, but it was quite a interesting. I mean, the number of Tamils here, they left during the height of the war. You know, some of them went through a lot of trauma. You know, they lost husbands or brothers or sisters, whatever. But you know, I didn't know the whole story, but I left her a copy of my book, So L'Île Nostalgique. I'm hoping that somewhere, you know, the world brings together. It's one island, but it's all islands. You know, we all go through this trauma. You know, wherever we are, in different ways. So, the trauma of the war and so on. Anyway, they're all, you know. I mean, there's a movie that won the Cannes prize, you know, a few years ago about this sort of Tamil refugees in Paris. I can't remember the name of the film, but anyway, yeah, it was a very interesting place to be, and I'm grateful to have this chance. You know, obviously, yeah, after 20 years or something, more than that.
Well, thank you all. Thank you all.
Thank you.
And yes, next week we have an entirely horror-themed poetry show, which will be emceed by F.J. Bergman, one of the big people within the whole sci-fi horror community. And yes, I believe we will have a quintet of horror poets. So please do join us for that.
Dress up, go with some like Halloween. We don't get enough Halloween in Australia, so I need my Halloween.
Sure. Everyone has to come in a costume if they can.
Yeah.
Even if it's, you know, sort of a fake moustache or something, you know.
You could just hold a pumpkin, right? Is that enough? Does that work?
Maybe a pumpkin on your head or something like that.
Oh, okay. We'll go pumpkin shopping.
Anyway, I'm going to hand over the open mic to Cassandra / Jonathan.
Yeah. John Andra.
John Andra.
John Andra.
I like it.
We have fantastic open mic. We always do, but some of my favorites, some newbies this week. It's going to be great. So we're going to kick off with Ralph, who always does a wonderful open mic. He's going to open for us today. So I don't know if I have to do this thing where I have to unmute him, which is...
I think I can
Yes,
I think I can unmute myself.
You did. Clever person.
Right. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Absolutely.
All right, good. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time zone you happen to be in. Here's two new poems, one a haiku. October's full moon is often called the hunter's moon, and we just had it a few days ago. Hunter's moon waning, stars in the October sky shine a bit brighter. David mentioned the Pound poem in the station at the Metro. This new poem is called Lamentation of Another Evening Wasted. And it's after the great Chinese poet Li Bai, also known as Li Bo or Li Po, who had quite an influence on Pound. If you know anything about Li Bai, you know that the only thing that he might have loved more than poetry was wine. He in fact, he's called the wine immortal in China after these many centuries. So this is after Li Bai, Lamentation of Another Evening Wasted. The wine jug has been filled and emptied, filled and emptied. My lips alone have kissed its wide, wet mouth. Leaves of torn and crumpled paper scattered about the chamber, covering my feet. An entire night of raising a cup to beg the moon's blessings, hands blackened with ink. Stain of autumn moonlight on my writing desk, stain of forsaken verses on my fingers. A night of drunken lines mourning my drunken days. One page worth saving. If I thought I could make it back to my room, I would drag my body down to the banks of the Yangtze in the awakening dawn and let this single sheet set sail on its waters under the branches of the red maples.
Wow, they were knockouts this week. That was amazing. I want a
thank you.
t-shirt. I want your moon poem on a t-shirt. I reckon that would sell. It's gorgeous. And in Australia, we're all like alcoholics because we've been in lockdown for so long. So I like the idea of the wine jug is being filled and emptied, filled and emptied. What a great kind of duo of poems to kick off. Thank you.
Thanks.
Next, we have Paul Hetherington, known as PH here in Australia, fondly, and he's going to read something wonderful for us, I hope. Paul, can you unmute yourself?
Yep, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Look, thanks very much, Cassandra. And look, thanks to all the readers. It's been such a wonderful reading. It just really thrilled me to hear that. This poem is a prose poem and it's called Ring. It sat like a miniature jeweled Tower of Babel, as if it might climb all the way to heaven from her middle finger. When she held a glass of wine, it was all angles and glints, the old yellow gold casting a 24-carat shine into deepening afternoon. Whatever she handled seemed to climb into the ring, so that cooking translated aromas as if they were funneled toward the sky, and perfumes were expressed in motions of her hand. We touched tentatively, and I imagined that structure of precious gems roaming over my skin as if a builder was finding a place to lay her tower down, or a restless golden insect was suddenly all eyes. Occasionally, as her hands rested near me, the diamond point reminded me of our incipient separation, yet she built emotions that might be towers, a whole city of exclamations founded on golden, latitudinous evenings and heights we climbed.
Wow, thank you. I'd say more things about it, but you'll get a big head, and given that you're in Australia, I'd have to deal with the consequences of that. No, thank you so much. It was really great.
How close do you guys actually live to each other?
A 1 hour plane ride, a fair way, 8 hour drive. He's in Canberra and I'm in Melbourne.
I see.
So yeah, he's not been in lockdown for very long. That's all we talk about in Australia is who's been in lockdown longest.
I like the way that the breeze moved through your teeth when you said that, actually.
Well, thanks, PH. Always a pleasure. We have DeWitt next, the wonderful D. He launched a Mad Hat book at, I think you Americans say Grolier, right? We sort of say Grolier, I guess, here. But he did a fantastic job. Mark, he did you proud. He made me teary. He was bloody great. So DeWitt's going to read for us today. If I can find him. There he is. Can you unmute? He's, yay.
Okay. Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay. Well, this is a bouquet of what I call found poems, which may or may not be valid. See what you think. Courtship. The wealthy farmer had broken his leg. The young doctor rode from town to treat him. The farmer's daughter always accompanied the doctor to the foot of the steps outside the door while his horse was brought around. They stood there silent. The breeze eddied around her, swirling the stray wisps of hair at her neck, or sending her apron strings flying like streamers around her waist. Once she was standing there on a day of thaw when tree bark was oozing sap and the snow was melting on the roofs. She went inside for her parasol and opened it. The parasol was of rosy, iridescent silk, and the sun pouring through it painted the white skin of her face with flickering patches of light. Beneath it, she smiled, and drops of water could be heard falling one by one on the taut moire.
Wow, that's a cracking poem.
Found from Madame Bovary by Gustave Flaubert, translated by Francis Stigmuller.
I think it's amazing. I love it.
Can I
Absolutely.
do another one? Just a short one?
Yeah, do one. Yeah, love them.
This is called Hospice Visit. Once her granddaughter brought a young Marine to visit. Gravely, without self-consciousness, he sat himself cross-legged on the floor and performed for them a dance of his native Samoa. Long after they left, a tiny thrumming sound could be heard where, in her bed, she strove to repeat the beckon, flight, surrender of his hands, the fluttering footbeats, and his low plaintive calls. To deepen her pleasure, he had taken one of the flowers sent by friends and placed it in her hair, like a girl, he said, and brought the hand mirror so she could see. The pulsing red flower, the yellow skull face. She had pushed the mirror away, but let the flower burn. That's found in Tilly Olson's Tell Me a Riddle.
I love it. And how could I match you perfectly? I must have known. I had like psychic visions of you reading that poem. I love them. You've got to put them in a book. That's nuts. You've got to put a whole lot together. That would be a wonderful manuscript.
Well, if I keep aging, if I am sued, I won't serve any time.
Oh, that's... Nah, you're going to live till 200, I can tell. You'll still be like, running marathons in your head. I have to go next to Cindy, who is always entertaining, always brilliant with her poems. And I don't know what she has in store for us today, but it's going to be something fantastic. My sister Cindy.
You. Beautiful sister Cassandra, thank you. And this was really a great reading. The features and the open micers. So far, I'm having a blast. I'm sure I've read this poem here before. It's a short prose poem, but this morning I added a line. So technically it's a whole new poem. So you never heard it before. It's called Telling You Everything. And it has a little epigraph by Charles Simic, who we all love. He said, "Be brief and tell us everything." So that's what I'm going to do. I am all moan and bone and dangling participles. I am all pipes and drums, but no voice box. My body is hamstrung and jagged. I am a bellyful of barren. These days, I have become nothing but chocolate bars and razor blades. Thank you.
I told you she's brilliant. I love a dangling participle. I love that. What a great, and Cindy gets away with it even more because if you haven't checked out her Facebook, she's like a grammar nut. It's amazing. She knows everything.
I'm a top that's right.
It's definitely something to check out. Thank you, sister. And we have our final reader is the amazing John Wessex, and it's not the same to have an open mic without hearing from the Wombat himself. He tells me I missed International Wombat Day, so I'm feeling quite guilty here that I didn't celebrate it. But John's going to read for us. Please close our wonderful open mic today, John, with something.
Well, thank you. It's been a wonderful reading. And yes, Thursday was International Wombat Day, but that has nothing to do with this poem. This is my attempt to improve on Ferlinghetti. I am waiting for the Budweiser bullfrogs, and I am waiting for a Tammy Faye of mustard. I am waiting for my hypotenuse to be called, and I am waiting for needles and Brill cream to reclaim the diamonds as theirs. And I am waiting for the menopause of anxiety, and I am waiting for the final withering away of all segues and crosswalks. And I am waiting for hash browns and and neutron stars to fall like hydrogen, and I am waiting for Benifer and the Aflac duck to lie down together again in a new Tammy Faye of mustard. I am waiting for the second Pornhub, and I am waiting for the quirks of cortisol to be stored, and I am waiting for escargot to come to the final darkest temptations, and I am waiting for sulfuric acid to grow pistols by the pepper mill, and I am waiting to see granite slabs on Pat's Sajak, roach clipped onto church altars if only they can find the right maple syrup, and I am waiting for the leftover shumai to be served again with a strange new tablespoon, and I am perpetually awaiting a Tammy Faye of mustard. I am waiting to get some intimations of Cleveland by recollecting my S&H green stamps, and I am waiting for a reconstructed Viking strip to reach bacon and pancakes with its picture story and Pat Sajak writes, sold in advance as spam sushi in a new Tammy Faye of mustard, and I am perpetually waiting for the dewormed lovers in Grecian formula to at last throw fastballs and embrace, and I am awaiting perpetually and forever for a renaissance of mustard.
That was so cool. I loved it. I want to have a Tammy Faye of mustard on a hash brown. I've decided if I put those all together. That's amazing. Thank you for always bringing something really quirky and memorable. And we do have one more person. We have Bob Heeman from his kitchen, but we're not going to see his kitchen because his video is not working. So you're going to have to imagine what's on his dish rack, everyone, and think about you know, his little mug and his papers and all of the things you normally see around him. So Bob, can we get you to read, please? Are we getting an information today, or are we getting something else?
No, this is something from my book, How It All Began, in the spirit of Halloween. So,
excellent.
Loss. In the river, unhealthy things are floating. Ghouls dive for them, grab them in their powerful incisors, then swim back to shore. There they have their feast. This goes on for a long time. The night air is cool and there are many stars. Behind the bushes, someone is labeling the whole scene to increase clarity and provide a concise record for the future. The river is A, the night sky B, the ghouls C1, C2, and so on. There are maybe 20 or 30 ghouls. It is hard to get an accurate count since there are always so many of them in the water. The things floating in the river are labeled collectively D, although they vary in size and substance quite a bit. The observer with an eye toward immortality has labeled himself E, not realizing the future implications of the unlabeled and unexplained footsteps that have crept up behind him unnoticed.
Thank you so much. That's a wonderful way to plug next week. But, you know, I think it's hard to get an accurate count of ghouls is possibly my favorite line. I'm going to remember that. When I see some ghouls approaching, I'll be like, Bob's told me to count them. I'm going to struggle, but it's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for closing our open mic. And I better hand back to the brilliant Marc for some final words.
Well, thanks everybody. That was an amazing show. So in order to take us back to kind of more leafy reality, I would say, here's a little poem of mine from my new book, The Little Book of Earthly Delights. That's delights in Chinese, by the way. And it's called Wild Blueberries.
But where is he?
Where am I? Did everyone hear that?
Yeah, somebody wasn't muted. I muted them.
Somebody wasn't muted.
That's okay.
That was me. They saw that.
This one's called Wild Blueberries. As a child, after 5 minutes of conversation, I was short of breath. There was no sense of days being long or fleeting, but high in the mountains, among the wild blueberries, the clouds of misty red concealed the forest. And in that immortal realm, not a word spoken, following stream after stream, those strange rock formations, willingly breathless, stared down into all my generations. Thank you so much, everyone, for a wonderful show tonight. And we hope to see you at the horror show next week. So please do join us. Bring your kids. We don't want to scare them too much. So, we'll keep it to a light horror. But at any rate, thanks so much for tonight. Lots of love, lots of poetry, and thank you for a wonderful show. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Good night.
Peace, love, and ghouls.
Good night.
Good night. Good night.